welcome back to the Star Wars Podcast Racer. I say back, I don't know, maybe you're here for the first time. If so, hi, welcome. My name is Tyler, and I don't have a guest. Sometimes I have guests, and by that I mean one time I've had a guest. But I want more guests. More guests are coming, I promise. I promise there's going to be more guests. I have friends. I definitely have friends. Anyways, that incredibly sad opening bit out of the way. Like I said, welcome. What episode is this? 7? I think this is episode 7. I don't know why I bother saying the episode number, because I put it up in the title anyways. But whatever episode this is, I'm pretty sure 7. Welcome. So, okay. I've said before, like, this isn't, like, a podcast that's going to be, like, necessarily regular or whatever. I've mostly been doing these every week so far. With a little bit here and there. But it's because, specifically for 2025, I kind of wanted to get these out weekly. And then after that, maybe I'll take a break or two here. You know, doesn't really matter. But yeah, I've been trying to do these weekly for 2025, just so I kind of have like a bit of a backlog, I guess, right away. However, I don't really... I come up with the podcast episode topics usually like the day of or the day before or whatever. But I usually have, you know, a couple in mind. And this week was no different. I had one that I yesterday was like, yeah, I think I'm going to be doing this one. It's either this one or this one, but I think I'm going to do this one. And then today the Game Awards aired. Now, if you are not into video games and you don't know what the Game Awards are, you're lucky. So, yeah, it's an award show for video games. The difference is that none of us that watch actually care about the awards. We're literally just there for the new trailers that might get shown, because they like to announce new games at these award shows. So that's what we're there for. I don't know what most of the awards were. Whatever. I just wanted to hear some of the new games being announced. And lo and behold, we got 2 Star Wars games that were announced. And not just 2 Star Wars games, but 2 Star Wars games that are resurrecting dormant series. I'm excited. I was so excited. I immediately am like, yeah, screw what I originally had planned for a podcast topic. Maybe I'll get back to that later. This week we are talking about these 2 games. And more specifically, their legacy. Because I think some people, especially some newer people or people not as familiar with Star Wars, might not understand that, yeah, both of these games have a legit legacy behind them. If you watch the Game Awards, you probably know about the legacy of KOTOR, because they did mention that, but they did not mention the legacy for Racer. So yeah, we'll get into that. So to start, what are the 2 new games? I was saying them. The 2 games are Star Wars: Fate of the Old Republic, which I will probably be referring to as FOTOR for the rest of this or most of this. It's just easier for me. And the other one is Star Wars Galactic Racer, which I will be referring to as Galactic Racer because I'm not calling it GR. That just seems weird. FOTOR and grrr. No. But yeah, those are the 2 new games that were announced. The first one, we got essentially no info except for the fact that they're making it. Very nice cinematic trailer, but like fully cinematic. They even said in the press release, like, yeah, we are just starting this game. So, yeah, I wouldn't be expecting FOTOR anytime soon. Like at minimum, maybe like 3 years. Probably closer to 5, unfortunately. But maybe it's a little farther along than they are making it seem. I don't know. Maybe they're fast workers. as long as they're not crunching. I don't like crunch culture. That's awful and terrible, and it doesn't actually work. So don't crunch these people. Give them all the time they need. I want what's important is not my enjoyment, but the quality of work. The quality of work for these people, the quality of living for these people. You know what I'm saying? Workers' rights is what I'm saying. Anyways, Galactic Racer, however, did say 2026, and I believe that it's a racer game. Even though we didn't get the trailer was also cinematic. Well, sort of was cinematic. The trailer was in game, or not in engine. It was all in engine, so it was cinematic, but it was all in engine. While the FOTOR one was, honestly, I think that was just all CGI. But yeah, the racer is clearly, a little bit farther along, and plus, it's a racing game. Racing games are, I don't want to say okay, now how do I say this the right way? Obviously, all games, could be hard to make, and I'm not saying anything negative here. I'm just saying, when you're looking at genres of games, racing games are probably one of the quicker ones to make, easier ones to make, than role-playing games. And I'm just realizing some people might not know what a role-playing game is. Well, let's split these into two. Let's talk about the Racer series first. Actually, we'll save the Old Republic series for a little bit, because that's the one I'm more excited about. But I want to talk about Racer here because there's less to talk about, but honestly, still very important. So, Racer, obviously racing game. The very first Racer game was released in 1999 as a tie-in for Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. In fact, it was actually called Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. A lot of people just call it Star Wars Racer. And it was originally apparently supposed to be called Star Star Pod Racer, but apparently there was something about the word pod they weren't allowed to use. I heard this third hand, so I don't know. But apparently there might have been some sort of legal reason why they couldn't call it a pod racer. So they just called it Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. So Star Wars Episode 1 Racer was released in 1999 for the Nintendo 64, of course, my beloved, the arcades, and the Game Boy Color. It also came out for the Dreamcast, but I think that was in 2000 that the Dreamcast version came out. And did it get a PC release? I don't know. I didn't look up this beforehand. I'll be honest, most of the time, unless I tell you guys I'm looking something up while I'm recording, most of the time this is just off the top of my head. Just stuff I remember from 20 years ago or whatever. So, if I ever get some information wrong, I'm sorry. I would say I'm trying my best, but no, really, I'm just remembering things. I just remember things and like to talk about it, but most of the stuff I talk about, though, usually if I'm not sure of something, I'll usually be I'm pretty sure, or I think. If I am 100% positive, then I'll just say it fact. For example, I know for a fact the game Episode 1 Racer came out in 1999. Because I have, of course, memorized the years that the Star Wars movies came out. I don't know most of the... I couldn't tell you most of the important dates for American history, but I can tell you the important dates for Star Wars. Anyway, so that's off topic. The Dreamcast version is the one that is probably the best. It's the one they used for the modern port. Because, yes, there was a port of Episode 1 Racer. I think the port was just called Star Wars Racer. I think they dropped the Episode 1 from the port, the modern port. I could be remembering wrong. I literally just played it 2 days ago. I should remember this, but I don't off the top of my head. Regardless, it doesn't really matter. What does matter is that the game is great. It is very, very fun. The arcade. I did get to play the arcade version once. That one was so cool because like it's you sit in like a pod and you control it with like the two sticks like Anakin does in episode 1. Oh, so much fun. However, there was of course less like tracks and stuff like that. The less features. So okay, the N64 version is what I grew up with. That's the one I know best, and that's essentially the main version, and the others are based off of it. I don't know what the Game Boy Color version is like. Never played it, but whatever. So basically, the way the game works is it's a racing game. You choose who you want to play as. There are Anakin Skywalker, of course, is there. You can eventually unlock Sebulba. And you can also unlock, or some of them are already unlocked, basically everybody that was in the pod race in episode 1, and some new characters they just kind of made up. Oddly enough, though, there isn't like any well-known like figures. Like they didn't like put Qui-Gon Jinn or Jar Jar Binks in a pod or anything like that. No, it's literally just it's more like realistic, more real to the universe, if that makes sense. Like it's less of a like, oh, here's a Star Wars racing game, and more of a here is a pod racer game. If that makes sense. And it's something I actually really appreciated. Like, because don't get me wrong, it'd be cool to like race as Yoda versus Darth Vader or something like that, but there's something to be said about like the artistic integrity, I guess, of just being like, no, this is a pod race game. Only the pod racers are going to be in this. And yeah, I really I really appreciate that. Okay, I got off on the topic there. So one of the cool things about this game, though, is not just the different racers you can unlock that are all original, but the fact that you can upgrade your pods. So after you do a race, if you win, you get a certain amount of money, and those credits you can then take to Watto's junk shop, and you could either buy brand new parts, or you can go check his junkyard, which is always like different stuff after every race, and some of it is like good finds, some of it is overpriced, some of it is an incredibly bad quality, like it's gonna break soon. But yeah, you can just keep upgrading your racer after like every single one, and by doing that, you of course can go faster, and eventually deck it all out so that you'd be faster than anyone and win all of the tracks. Like it's not a complex game, but the upgrading your pod aspect of it really kind of elevates it for me. Now during the race, you again, it's a race, 3 laps around the track. Standard stuff, just like what you'd see in the movie, but also like in the movie, like you can have damage done to your pod that you can then fix. There is a repair button that you can then repair. Hold it down. You stop moving, like you slow down, stop moving as you work on repairing your pod. Then but you can repair it. So you can repair it mid race, which is again really a fun mechanic to work with. There's also a boost, which actually becomes kind of vital. And if you boost once you boost, it's of course turning can be kind of hard unless you like max out your turning, thanks to Watto's junk shop. Also though, while you're boosting, you can overheat very easily. You have to be careful. Again, you can make it harder to overheat by increasing your cooling at Watto's junk shop, but again, that's all part of the strategy that goes into this game. And yeah, there is actual strategy. Like this isn't just like this isn't a kart racer. There was a Star Wars kart racer. Bombad Racing. I own it. It's not good, but but this game, the Racer series, is not a kart racer. It is, but at the same time, it's also not like a simulation, really. Like, almost in some ways, I guess you could argue it's kind of like a pod race simulation, but it plays more arcadey. Like, it does play like an arcadey, fun racing game. But it does have these like very specific pod race elements that, in my opinion, really elevate it. Also, the tracks are really fun. Like, there's multiple like paths that they'll use depending on like the difficulty of the circuit. But a lot of them have like not exactly secret because you can see it on the mini map, but like extra ways, like shortcuts and stuff that you can find, things you can kind of like blast through at times. And some of them are well-known Star Wars worlds, some are brand new, and some are expanded universe worlds that were brought in. And again, just a lot of fun. It seems weird to some people, I'm sure, but I'm not kidding when I say Star Wars Racer is probably one of my favorite Star Wars games. It's a really, really good game. There's you can also like race against people, I guess. I don't know. I don't think I've ever raced against anyone in it. I have friends. I promise you, I have friends. I do. They exist. They're not just in my head. I have friends. Isn't that right, Mr. Muttons? Mr. Muttons. Mr. Mutton says yes, I have friends. Now, Racer did get a sequel, and I have to be 100% honest, I have not actually played the sequel. I think I own it technically somewhere. Not physically. I never owned it physically because I didn't even know it existed at the time. I think I own it on my PS3 digitally. Did it get released digitally on there? Jeez, I don't remember now. I wonder if I could find out. Hang on. We're going to do this. Hang on. I need to check something. Okay. So, yes, I just checked on my phone. I was wrong. It wasn't the PS3 that I bought it for. It was the PS4. But yes, I own it. I own it digitally on the PS4. But I haven't played it yet. So the game is Star Wars Racer Revenge. It is a sequel, of course, to Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, continuing the Racer series. Now, however, of course, this isn't Episode 1 Racer. In fact, this is more of Episode 2 Racer. It uses the 19-year-old Anakin model as opposed to the 9-year-old Anakin model. It was released for the PS2 in 2002. I, again, have not played it. I bought a whole bunch of the games digitally, like as a bundle on sale years ago, and I haven't gotten to all of them. I should at some point. However, I have heard that the game is just not quite as good. They took out some of the customization elements that I really liked from the first one. They also added some like bonus characters that are a little bit more gimmicky. Like, you can actually play as Darth Vader in a pod, like a pod that's based off of his TIE fighter or something. Like, I don't know, guys. That's kind of fun, I guess. But what about the artistic integrity of the Star Wars Racer line? You know. But yeah, that game just did not do as well, I guess. And the Racer series ended there at the time. I have heard that Racer Revenge is still, like, legitimately good, just not as good as the first one. But I can't say for sure myself. That's just like secondhand information I've heard. However, now we do have Star Wars Galactic Racer. Again, there was no gameplay, so I don't know if we're gonna have any of the customization or anything. What I do know, though, based on what we see, is that it's not just pod racing. It seems to be other racers. Like there was speeder bikes. There was like speeders. It seems to be like a few different types of racing things in there. It's also being made by some of the people that made like Need for Speed and some other racing games. So that's really cool. I'm hopeful for this. I liked the locations that were shown off, including some from the like original trilogy, new trilogy. I think we saw some from prequel. I mean, even if we didn't see anything from the prequel, I mean, it's pod racing. we got prequel rep, and it looks really fun, and I'm hoping it's going to be canon. The original Racer and especially Racer Revenge were definitely not canon. There wasn't even any story. I don't think there was any story in Racer Revenge. There definitely wasn't in Racer. But I would love for there to be an actual story mode, especially because we got to see a model for old Sebulba at the end of the trailer. So I'm hoping. I would love, as somebody who doesn't have friends. I have friends. I have friends. That just because I don't have anyone to play multiplayer games with does not mean I don't have friends. I have friends. I promise you. Please believe me. I have friends. But I generally play games single player, so I would love a story mode. Flesh out old Sebulba there. That'd be great. But yeah, I'm excited for Galactic Racer. It's. Again, I think there's going to be a lot of people that don't even necessarily know that this is a continuation of a series, but it is. But all right, that's Racer. Let's talk about the other one. We're talking about FOTOR, Fate of the Old Republic, and it is a continuation of the Old Republic game series, and also our first new canon entry into the Old Republic era. Oh, I am so excited. Of course, granted, this is apparently taking place at the end of the Old Republic era, so this actually is... I think this is closer, technically, to the High Republic and even original trilogy, prequel trilogy, eras, than it is the original KOTOR games. So... I don't know. That's funny. I probably just sounded. It sounded like I just said gibberish to most of you people. Sorry about that. I just that's most of what I talk about. I mostly this podcast is mostly gibberish, and I apologize for anyone that actually listens this far in. But I'm excited. I am super excited. Okay. Let's get into it. The old Republic. I've talked a little bit about the Old Republic era in a previous episode. It is my favorite era. I love the era of the Old Republic. We just haven't gotten anything in the new canon that's set during this time period. So, okay. Why do I love the Old Republic era so much? It mostly comes right back down to KOTOR. Knights of the Old Republic, released in 2003. For the Xbox and the PC, and I think that was it. Yeah. There was definitely no PS2 or GameCube. So, yeah, at the time that would have been it. Sorry about that. I yawned. Not that KOTOR's not boring. That yawn has nothing to do with that. That had to do with the fact that it's 1:07 a.m. and I just got back from work. Anyways, yeah, I'm Knights of the Republic is a role-playing game, RPG for short. If you don't know what a role-playing game is, it's basically, well, in this case it is turn-based. Well, sort of. Okay, that you're trying to describe the gameplay is not going to help here. If you don't know what a role-playing game is, I'm not the one to try to explain it to you. Basically, though, it's more story based. It's the story is what's important in a role playing game. as opposed to the gameplay. In fact, sometimes you just straight up don't like the gameplay, and I'll be honest, that's kind of the case with KOTOR. The actual gameplay is kind of bugged, but I'm here for the story and the vibes, and there's a lot of good story and vibes in this one. Let me tell you, I still think KOTOR probably is still my favorite Star Wars game. And that's going to make at least one person I know very upset because the gameplay is not great. But I don't care. I love playing KOTOR. Even if the gameplay is bad sometimes, I still love playing KOTOR. I love creating my own Jedi and entering this world and experiencing this amazing story. And this story is, I think, still probably my favorite Star Wars story. It is so good. I'm not going to spoil it. But the twist. Oh, that twist. That just makes you... It perfectly just makes you, like, see everything that came before it in a completely different light. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to spoil it. We might get a KOTOR remake. That's apparently still in the works. I don't know, but what I do know is this. I love Knights of the Old Republic. It is such a good game. It is legendary for a reason. Gameplay's not great, but but besides that, exploring the world, experiencing the story, and connecting with these characters, so good, so good. Knights of the Old Republic did get a sequel, and I think it was 2005. Knights of the Old Republic 2. Some people would say that Knights of the Old Republic 2 is even better. Of course, they're probably saying that it's better as long as you have the fan-made patch to actually finish the game. Because the game shipped unfinished. And back in those days, it wasn't a guarantee that you were going to get a patch. And even if you got a patch, you would have to go seek it out. It wasn't going to be downloaded for you like they are nowadays. And in fact, generally then, the only way you were going to get a patch is if the game was super successful. And unfortunately, I don't think Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords, that's the subtitle, was successful. Or as successful, at least. I don't think it was successful enough to warrant them releasing the patch. Or maybe it was just that there was going to be too much to actually finish the game. So they couldn't even do that as a patch. I don't know the whole story. I'm just speculating a little bit. All I know is that the game is functionally... like, you could get to the end, of course, but you are missing chunks of what's supposed to be there. And some of it is a little unpolished because of that. But when you get the fan patch, it basically completely fixes those over. And even if you don't, it's still good. It is a very, very good story. It's got a lot of the same stuff as KOTOR. Like, it really does feel like you are continuing KOTOR, even though you're playing as a new Jedi and stuff. It is a very... The story is different. It takes place not too long after the original game, but like it's trying to be different. It's trying to be... I don't know how best to explain this. It's, in a way, it's kind of like The Empire Strikes Back to KOTOR's A New Hope, if that makes sense. Like, Empire Strikes Back is really good in that it really fleshes a lot of things out and really focuses more on, like, character stuff. Like you learn more about the Force, and you learn more about, like, Luke as a character. While the first movie was a little bit more, action adventure-y. In a sense, in a way, that is kind of the case here. They really do some interesting things with the characters. I'm going to be real, though. I don't want to say something that's going to get me lynched. I like KOTOR 2. I really do. I think it is a worthy sequel. I don't think I like its story as much personally as the first games. And I know for a lot of people that will make them kind of upset, because there is actually a lot of people that consider KOTOR 2 the superior game. And I understand and respect people that think that. I respectively disagree. Respectably. Did I say respectively? Respectably disagree. Just at least for me personally, I kind of prefer I prefer KOTOR 1. I prefer the twist in KOTOR 1. I prefer the characters in KOTOR 1. I prefer the story in KOTOR 1. I'm sorry, that's just maybe I need to replay KOTOR 2. It has been quite a few years. I really should play it again, but at least from my memories right now, love both games. One is better for me, in my opinion. Now, that isn't the end of the series yet. We still have another game of sorts. Star Wars The Old Republic, an MMO. I am actually planning on eventually doing a podcast episode all about this, so I'm not going to get too much in detail. However, I will explain that it is an MMO, or that's short for MMORPG, which is the acronym for massively multiplayer online role-playing game. So it is a RPG, a role-playing game, played by a whole bunch of people online, and it's huge. So massively multiplayer online role-playing game. MMORPG, or just MMO. Okay, everybody caught up on that? Good. Wonderful. My cat just knocked something down in the living room. Anyways. Oh, she's knocking... I know what she's knocking down. She's knocking down my nativity scene. Tetra, please stop knocking down my nativity scene. It makes Tyler sad. Why am I keeping that in? I don't know. Anyways, so Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO, is an interesting case. So I like it. I like a lot of the. I like some of the. I haven't finished all the stories. See, that's what I'm saying. I'm planning on doing an episode when I finish all the stories. I like a lot of the stories. I dislike some of the stories. None of them are nearly as good as KOTOR 1 or 2. And they're a lot more on rails than the stories for KOTOR 1 or 2. Or at least they feel like it. However, I think for an MMO, it is very impressive story-wise. A lot of MMOs, they just don't really care as much about the story, or they're discouraging you from playing single player. With Star Wars: The Old Republic, though, I totally feel like they are actively encouraging me to play single player. Like it almost feels like a normal game where like you'll have like a single player mode and then a multiplayer mode. It almost feels like that when you're playing the Old Republic, except that technically you are always online with other people. And it doesn't really break immersion that much in that regard. Like as an MMO. I actually really do appreciate it. It just kind of feels like I'm in the Star Wars galaxy with a whole bunch of other people running around. But yeah, I still feel like I am the hero of the story, if that makes sense. Anyways, I'm kind of stepping into some of the stuff I'm planning on talking about in that episode. What I will say is this, though. This is the same series. This is the Old Republic series, but now with a whole bunch of stories into it. Because every single class that you can choose has its own unique story. So both dark side and light side. And not just that, but we are still getting DLC content. I say DLC content, expansions, whatever. We're getting story expansions relatively regularly. So yeah, the story is still ongoing there. We are getting more stories. Some of them are okay. Some of them are just not that great, to be blunt. But regardless, it's still nice that that's there, and it's honestly it's the only MMO that I have played. Well, okay, it's not the only one I've played. I've finished the main story for. Well, it's the only one I've finished the main story multiple times because with multiple classes. Final Fantasy XIV, I did play through the main story once. And I started getting to the expansions. Because Final Fantasy XIV is good. But then it starts forcing you more into multiplayer stuff. And I don't like multiplayer stuff. Yeah, I know. It's like, why play an MMO then? And it's like, well, it's not my fault that you guys are putting good games in MMOs. Anyways, that is the Old Republic. Long story short. And now we have Fate of the Old Republic, which is made by the same guy, or I should say, it's directed. The game is being directed by the same guy that directed the original KOTOR, which is an absolute plus for me. That's so good. He's and anyone who might be like, hey, the gameplay was bad. I don't know if you're watching this all the way through, Reg. I'm hoping you're listening to this all the way through, because I just want you to know, that kind of hurt me. I was all excited about this, happy to share about this on Discord, and you are over there like, oh, he's the one that did the bad gameplay for KOTOR 1. Well, why are you excited about that? Well, screw you, man. I am excited. You know why? Because he was the one that was responsible for the amazing story and the amazing world and characters, and then he went on and also directed the Mass Effect trilogy, which I loved, including the gameplay. So, screw you, man. This is a good thing. And now, now, the fact is that Reg probably did not actually listen to this the whole way through, so sorry about that, guys. I just needed to get that off my chest. If you did listen all the way through, Reg, still love you. But no, I am very excited for Fate of the Old Republic, for FOTOR. Even though who knows when it's going to arrive. The press release that Lucasfilm put out did say also that this is taking place at the end of the Old Republic era, which I mentioned earlier. So, if you don't remember, I mentioned this in a previous episode, but if you don't know, the Old Republic era ends 1,000 years before the events of the movies, and basically, it's all of the Sith essentially get wiped out. Like the final battle between the Jedi and the Sith. Finally, the Jedi win. Jedi are victorious. They think the Sith are extinct. Darth Bane still exists, though. He goes into hiding. He initiates the rule of two, so that there are only ever two Sith at a time, and the Sith stay in the shadows, for 1,000 years, up until Sidious comes forth. And once that happens, the Old Republic gets reorganized into the Galactic Republic, and that starts the High Republic era, which we've seen quite a bit of. But yeah, I am so excited for this. I'm also excited because the way that they worded things, I'm wondering if they're going to be adding the Knights of the Old Republic 1, 2, and maybe even the Old Republic MMO back into the canon timeline. Because that's been one of the most infuriating things for me, is that despite it being so far away, and the fact that the Old Republic MMO is still getting story things coming out, and the fact that things are referenced, things are still referencing it. Despite all of that, Disney still was like, yeah, no, the Old Republic era, yeah, that still exists, but nothing in there was canon. KOTOR 1, 2, not canon. Why, guys? Why did you have to wipe it away from canon? I guess part of the reason is just because they, trying to be like, hey, there's all this stuff that's canon, guys, might be a little... No, you know what? Screw that. I don't care about newbies. I like my stuff. They want to go back and look it up, they can. No, no, okay, I'm being mean. I'm being mean. No, I am thinking though that if they, I believe if I have to guess at this point, I don't think the KOTOR remake is going to be a full remake. I think it's going to be more of like a graphical remake and maybe like slight gameplay tweaks. But like I think it's essential. I don't think they're going to be like recording new audio or rewriting dialogue or anything like that. I think it's essentially going to be like a enhanced remaster type deal. Maybe something closer to like, uh, if any people that know this, the Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, like that remake, it might be a little bit more like that, where it all looks better. The apart from maybe a few, well, that one had a few tweaks with the dialogue, but uh, mostly it was essentially the same. Like it, I think it might be a little bit closer to that. Just because that I think that would be a little bit easier for them to do and release, and then I think because they've also thanks to I'm not getting into all this, but thanks to court documents from a class action lawsuit against Aspire, we do know that they are also planning on potentially making a KOTOR 2 remake. So, considering again, FOTOR was announced, that's going to be tied in. I'm thinking they're going to they're going to be releasing the KOTOR 1 and 2 remakes in between the time, kind of building up to FOTOR, and I think that's also going to be their essentially their I guess their excuse reason, I don't know, to reintroduce those into canon is what I'm guessing. But like while you're doing that, can you just make the Old Republic MMO canon again? Like it's ridiculous. It's still getting story stuff. We have new story coming out this year. Or why is it not canon? Like I just don't get it. Why remove from canon something that is actively being made? That's just my own whatever at Disney. Um, but yeah, that's kind of my thought about what might be happening. Is that I think they might be making those KOTOR remakes as kind of more like enhanced remasters to get them out a little bit quicker before Fate of the Old Republic, and that then they're going to be reintroduced to canon that way. Because again, we do know that a lot of that stuff is still canon. Revan, Darth Revan, is fully canon. He's been name dropped a couple times, and he also showed up in the latest Lego Star Wars special thing. They're the Rebuild the Galaxy, though obviously that's not canon. But you know he's canon, and he's in the minds of people. You know. But I am so excited. It's gonna be a long wait for that one. And I'm again also excited for Galactic Racer. Less of a wait for that one. Hopefully that one will be really good. I am excited for that too, though. And yeah, that's gonna do it for today's episode, guys. Thanks for listening to me basically gush about two games I'm super excited about, and kind of talking about why to me they are still so important. Hope you enjoyed it. If not, I get it. I will say next week, my plan is right now for next week to have a very special episode about The Force Awakens, because it's the 10th anniversary on Monday. And while I'm not going to release a video then, I am watching The Force Awakens once again on the 15th, on Monday. So I'm going to do a special 10th anniversary episode sometime next week. So, you know, look forward to that. Might have a special guest. It was offered. It was offered to somebody. And he gave me a solid, I don't know. So, you know, we'll see. Also next week, though, I do want to, I mentioned it last week, I do want to stream a little bit on this YouTube channel. Since right now the podcast is essentially YouTube exclusive. So, you know, I'm planning on streaming some Star Wars games next week, maybe. Um, Maybe just test it out a little bit. And I will say, because I guess it's a bit of more of an announcement for that, is that what I'm planning on is for next year to start doing a full Knights of the Old Republic playthrough on this channel. So, you know, something to look forward to. Especially now. Like, I was already planning on it, and then they're just like, yeah, hey, here's Fate of the Old Republic. It's like, timing. All right, guys. That's gonna be it for me this week. This episode. Like I said, thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate it, and may the force be with you.